Go live out on the street. Maybe the cold will teach you to value real work. My laptop bag hit the snowbank with a dull thud. My father stood in the doorway, his face flushed against the white chaos of the Bozeman blizzard. Behind him, my mother, Patricia, didn't even look up from her phone. She was too busy scrolling Zillow, probably through listings she pretended were potential investments. My sister, Victoria, claimed she had just sold another property. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I brushed the snow from my coat, looked at him, and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a landlord who just realized the tenant had violated the lease. Then I turned and stepped into the white void. Before I tell you how I made them regret that night, leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I'm curious who's part of this community. Most people look for shelter during a blizzard. I looked for a signal. I drove my battered sedan past the Motel 6, past the public library, straight to a private hangar at Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport. I entered a keypad code my parents used for their old gym locker, and the steel door slid open. Inside sat my mobile office, a Gulfstream G650. I climbed the steps, shook off the snow, and settled into the leather captain's chair. The cabin was quiet, smelling of conditioned air and expensive leather. I opened the laptop my father had just thrown into a snowbank. The screen flickered to life. My algorithmic trading bot had executed dozens of trades while he was shouting about values. The profit for the past hour alone was significant. I felt nothing. Joy requires trust. This was data. For years I had been the ghost in their house. The disappointment. The one playing games on a computer while Victoria was the golden child, the successful real estate agent. They saw me but never registered me. Their identity depended on one lie. Victoria was the winner, and I was the failure. If they admitted I was succeeding, that my games were high-frequency trading systems, their entire narrative would collapse. So their brains rejected the evidence. They didn't ignore my success because it was invisible. They ignored it because it was destructive to their story. Every month for years, through a shell company called Alpine Management LLC, I sent a consulting fee to my father's business account. They thought it was a solid contract with a client. It was me. I was the reason they paid their mortgage. The reason Victoria leased her Range Rover. They lived on a subscription funded by my guilt and never knew. The next transfer was scheduled for the following morning. I opened the banking portal and canceled it. The confirmation bar turned red. Transfer terminated. 2 weeks later I watched the sunrise over Main Street from the balcony of a presidential suite at the Kimpton Armory Hotel. I hadn't used my real name. To the staff I was just a quiet consultant who tipped well and declined housekeeping. To my family, I had suddenly become a criminal. My phone, which had been on silent for days, vibrated non-stop. Messages poured in. Confusion first, then accusation. They believed I had hacked their accounts. It was easier for them to imagine I had become a cybercriminal than to accept they had been living off my money. Victoria's commission check, they claimed, was delayed. I checked the MLS database. She hadn't closed a sale in months. There was no commission coming. She was drowning in lease payments and credit card debt used to maintain a luxury image online. My mother took the narrative public. A Facebook post about heartbreak and ungrateful children. Prayers for her lost daughter. Dozens of sympathetic comments. Privately, they demanded passwords. Publicly, they played victims. I didn't respond. Anger is a volatile asset. I prefer long-term returns. Instead, I wrote to the only relative who dealt in facts, my cousin Ryan, a forensic accountant in Seattle. I asked for a full audit. Not just the business. Everything. When he reviewed the numbers, the truth surfaced. The money I sent was not going to principal payments on the house. My father had been paying interest only, keeping default at bay. The rest funded Victoria's image. Reputation management firms. Social media bots. Staged awards. Even payments to silence a family who had threatened to sue her for selling a property with undisclosed structural damage. Worse, funds had been taken from a custodial account my grandmother had left for my education. My signature had been forged. The money had been used to settle that complaint quietly. Ryan looked sick when he explained it. It was fraud. Identity theft. Federal charges. I felt calm. The amount they stole felt like a termination fee. Payment to dissolve a contract I had never signed willingly. They hadn't just taken money. They had handed me a receipt for permanent freedom. I chose not to call the police. Prison would have been too clean, too dramatic. Instead, I reviewed another document. Months earlier, through a trust, I had quietly purchased the mortgage on their house when the bank offloaded risky debt. They never noticed the servicing transfer letter. When they missed a payment after I stopped sending money, they defaulted. Legally, I invited them to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town, promising a solution to their cash flow problem. They arrived confident, ordering wine and seafood without looking at prices. They assumed I had come to apologize. Instead, I slid a leather folder across the table. Notice of default. Audit findings. Evidence of the forged withdrawal. My tax return, showing income they had never imagined. The silence was complete. You accused me of hacking your accounts, I said quietly. I wasn't hacking them. I was them. I informed them they had 30 days to vacate the house. The new creditor was my trust. Me. Victoria grabbed my arm. Speaking of reputation, I reminded her reputation built on debt collapses quickly. I left cash for the water and walked out before the bill arrived. The collapse was slow but inevitable. Bankruptcy filings. Repossessed vehicles. A downsized rental. No dramatic explosions. Just gravity reclaiming illusion. I moved to land in the mountains. Built a server room. Installed a dedicated fiber line. It is quiet there. The kind of quiet that does not beg for approval. Sometimes blocked voicemails still appear. I never listen. You cannot fill a cup that refuses to be emptied. Some people need you small so they can feel large. The only way to win is to remove yourself from the equation entirely. Stop arguing with those who insist on misunderstanding you. Stop buying respect from people who value you only for utility. Build in silence. Let them underestimate you. The quietest person in the room is often the one holding the keys.